And that's why I believe in you, because that is the greatest purpose. It's to love. Honest. It sounds corny, whatever you want to say. I don't care. I love people because there is freedom and power in loving people.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we have the crazy belief that creating success and happiness is a daily conscious effort, which is why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week. I'm your host, Brandon Beecham, and each and every Wednesday, you can tune in to hear me interview a different consciousness changemaker that is out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness all across Spaceship Earth. On the other 4 weekdays, you can tune in to myself and my co-host, Dalian, giving interpretations of our favorite thought-provoking quotes, sharing a bit of inspiring or mysterious news, taking questions from the audience, and digging into any other mind-expansive topics that will help keep your soul fed by tuning you into positive vibrations on a regular basis. And you guys have heard me say that if I ever run ads on the show, it will only be with a company that I fully support because I believe their intention is to make a positive difference in the world. Well, I'm pleased to announce that day has arrived and that this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads, for this week's interview episode, you better lock up your broomsticks because I have none other than the magical host of Hippie Witch Radio, Joanna DeVoe, here with me on the show. Hey, that rhymed. Hey there, Joanna, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you for flying in on your broomstick and joining us. We really appreciate that.
You're so welcome.
So I'm going to open up the same way I open up every interview. You're in an elevator. The girl next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You've got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Magic. Co-creating your own reality. Nature. I could go on and on. I have a lot of passions.
Hey, you've got 10 floors, so don't let me stop you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I love my books. I would start explaining what magic is, because usually when you say that, people, their little hairs go up and they get very suspicious. So for me, magic is, Aleister Crowley defined it as creating consciousness in conformity with your will. And then it was later refined into creating a change in your consciousness in conformity with your will. Did I just say that twice? Maybe I did. But
you changed it. To
me, they're the same.
By adding change.
Yeah, to me, one is creating change in conformity with your will versus creating a change in consciousness in conformity with your will. And I think they're the same thing, because I believe when you change your consciousness, you change your reality. So I'm interested in all the ways that you can do that. All the ways. I love it. I like to play around in the physical, mundane, tangible, material reality as much as I do the spiritual realms. So I'm really interested in food, for example, and the healing potential in that. So my definition of magic is extremely broad.
I love it. Okay. Well, and that's something that I was going to get to here in a moment, but you jumped right in, which is perfect. And this is, you talk about on your website, magic with a K. Yes. So this is different than magic with a C, right?
Yes. Well, magic with a C often is associated.
Happens in Vegas.
Yeah, it's associated with the illusions that stage magicians do. Magic with a K is more law of attraction, actually changing your experience of reality. I also like the K in there because the umbrella for my business, my podcast is called Hippie Witch. The free ebook I give away is called Hippie Witch, but my business is called Kick-Ass Witch. So I like the K in there, putting the K in magic, because it's like, I really want to kick ass in my life. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself personal change to make that happen. And it's really about like getting off the mat and into your reality and engaging with it in a really kick-ass way. Like I said, about participating in the here and now, the physical reality that we find ourselves in, because I don't think that's an accident. And I don't want to, we often in the spiritual communities say we are spirits having a human experience, but then a lot of the messaging is very like, stay up in your upper chakras, really is how I hear that. And I think, no, don't forget having a human experience. That's what we're here for right now. So for me, the K is a lot to do with that. And then I also think the magic of stage magicians, the illusions, there's a fine line there, because you're literally changing the reality in some ways of the audience's experience. So it's really interesting to sit and think about that.
That's something that I've often pondered. I'm like, okay, when is there going to be a magician that's up there really, really doing magic, but under the guise of an illusion? And is that really happening? Every time I see someone who's really, really good, I'm like, okay, is this really someone, performing magic who's just under the illusion? He's like kind of, everyone thinks it's illusory for the most part, right? But, you wouldn't know, right?
Yeah. And a kind of side interest of mine is marketing and advertising and the media. And I think a lot of people would consider the magic going on that way. It's a lot of illusions, but it's so powerful, and it can be used to create positive change or to embed fear in the hearts and minds of the people watching, and it does. And so to me, that's magic as well. A very dangerous form of magic. It's really like, who's using it. It's neither good nor bad. It depends on the intention behind it.
It's sort of like, television and commercials, and, it's hypnotizing people, right? I mean, that's putting people in a hypnotic trance and sort of, okay, let me download what I want you to think, what I want you to buy, what I want you to do. And that,
They're the magicians of our time, and maybe the greatest magicians of all time, because most people aren't watching a magic show when they turn on their TV. They're not in the mindset that I'm going to be delighted by magic, especially when they watch the news. They're like buying it hook, line, and sinker. Like that's reality. So that's when I think the line just starts getting finer and finer and more fascinating.
Right. Well, how does sort of the more traditional, we all know of the traditional coven sort of the concept and stewing the pot with the black cat, and like, is that part of your practice? Obviously, you don't have the big cauldron in the pot, I'm pretty sure anyway. But is there like ritualistic aspects to a modern day witch? I mean, is that something that would be part of your practice, using intention and law of attraction to sort of cast spells and so forth?
Yes. I do have a cauldron. It's small. What I use it for...
Oh, really?
Yeah, what I use it for...
I stand corrected.
What I use it for are releasing rituals. So I would maybe... I like to work with the phases of the moon. So like, let's say on the dark moon, when you can't see the moon, that's sort of... I take a psycho-spiritual approach, and that means the point where psychology and spirituality meet. So it's about like working with your own psychology. So, for example, at the dark moon, you would maybe see that as a time to release things that no longer serve. And because the conscious mind it's not that powerful. It's really great at, keeping you organized in the day-to-day reality of your life and getting stuff done that way. But to reach the deeper levels of your psyche and to create real change, symbolism works really well. Sensuality, anything that engages your senses. And that's why ritual is powerful, because it's an experience and it creates a deeper level of change. So, for example, if I was going to do a releasing ritual, I might set the mood, engage as many senses as I can. The sense of smell is really powerful for me. So I like to work with, scented oils or things like that. And then you
Right.
just kind of really connect in with what it is that's no longer serving you. Maybe do some shadow work. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that. But then you write down what you don't want to be holding into your life anymore. Roll it up, fold it up, however you want to do it. You put it in the little container. It's a little cauldron. It's so cute. And then you light it on fire and you watch it burn and you just kind of meditate on the flames. It's staring
Right.
into a flame is so meditative, you know, and then the smoke.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of sit there and meditate. And then the point is afterward, sometimes you have to repeat it depending, you know, on how focused you were and how deep it went. But the point is then to act in alignment with that moving forward.
Right.
And, you know, so you set an intention. I really love Anthony Robbins, which is not very witchy of me, but I do.
I went to Date with Destiny a little over a year ago. A friend insisted, and it's like, no, you're going. Here's the tickets. Here's the tickets to Australia where it's happening. And yeah, it was really powerful.
Oh, you did like it?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I mean, you know, there's some parts of it that are a little, you know, like kind of hoorah a little bit. But overall, I mean, the guy's so wise. He knows what he is talking about. Very powerful. And, you know, I can definitely see why he's had the effect that he has on so many lives.
Yeah. Well, so much of his work is about changing your state, which is why I was bringing him up. You know, and that's kind of why he's so over the top and like, whoa, like, what is up with
That was
guy?
it. Yeah, there's a lot of that hoorah stuff because he's like, we got to get you in an elevated state. We've got to, you know, adjust that before you even start talking about this information and learning it. It has a different effect based off of the state that you're in when you're sort of, you know, your receptivity, right?
Right. Well, the reason I bring him up in context of a releasing ritual is because something I learned from him many years ago is that, you know, never leave the site of a decision without acting on it. So for me, if I'm going to, you know, do a releasing ritual or something, I would then do something to further solidify that in my life. I don't know what that would be because it depends on what I'm releasing. But my point is, you know, to follow through in your life. It's not just like a little pretty moment. It's like taking that moment seriously into heart. And I think we communicate with our souls some way, somehow doing things like that. So it's important to have integrity with yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what it makes me think of, it's almost like, I always jokingly say, we're going to cross over one day and see that everything was a placebo. You know, any medicine we take, anything. And it's sort of that same idea. It's like you're taking action, you're setting intentions, you're going through the motions, you're doing these acts. It almost, you know, perhaps it doesn't matter at all what you're doing. It's just that you think you're doing something and you're putting energy into it. And as a result, you know, voila, you get the effect, right?
Exactly. And you asked me about being in a coven, which I am not, but covens exist. And the power of a group ritual of people doing it, I mean, it's just more powerful when more people in the same room are holding the same intention and creating an experience together, especially if music or chanting is involved. I don't happen to belong to a coven, but a lot of people do. So shout out to those people listening, if they're listening.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's, once again, you know, sort of like group meditation or anything like that. There's more collective consciousness, you know, focused in the same direction, the more powerful it becomes, right?
Yeah, and I think what separates, like, let's talk in cliches here, if I can, for a moment, just to make a point. So what would separate, like, your average law of attraction practitioner, as if there is an average, but let's just say there is,
right?
From a witch, in my opinion, and there are plenty of witches who would disagree with this. This is just my perspective. The difference is a witch. I think magic is. The law of attraction is magic. And I think what witches do is it's a more sensual thing. We're involving more bells and whistles. Are the bells and whistles necessary? No. Are they helpful? Yes. I'm an artist. I'm a creative person. And I found myself gravitating toward that after years of just being very new agey, and which I still totally am. But it just started moving in that direction for me. And something that's changed in the New Age community is an embrace of shadow work. But at the time when I first got interested in magic and witches, and I really got into that community, it was a community that really acknowledged the shadow that we all have inside.
Right.
And I think that's a really important part of magic or the law of attraction, because that is really running the show far more than your conscious mind ever
Absolutely.
could. So,
yeah. Well, let's talk a little about that. Actually, I'd love to hear your perspective on shadow work and, what one would do to kind of go down that road.
Okay. Well, I guess we should define what the shadow is in case people don't know.
We've talked about it some on the show, it depends if they've heard those episodes or not. But yeah, go please. Let's hear your thoughts.
My take on the shadow: it's the rejected parts of yourself, the parts of yourself that have been shamed out of you by, typically when you're very young, by your parents, by your teachers, by society, by the TV, by magazines, whatever it is. It's the part of you that you find unacceptable.
Right.
And so there are a lot of different ways to do shadow work, but the way that I find to be the most powerful is to actually, I like to personify the shadow. So I wrote an ebook at the top of the year called The Spiritually Mature Witch. And it's really not about being a witch. It's kind of everything I'm talking about right now.
Right.
But in that, I have people, I identify like one aspect of the shadow and I call it a demon. So it's like demonology, but you're not trying to like cast out the demon. You're going to love it. So you're going to give it a form. You're going to look at it and think about it. In one of the groups I lead, I have people actually draw their shadow and then transform it. So first you draw as ugly as you see it to be. Then you start transforming it through art. Because the point is you have to learn how to love that aspect of yourself and integrate it, or it's going to humiliate you. It's going to pop out at the most inconvenient times. And then you're only strengthening that part of yourself. For example, if you hate people that you perceive to be bitches, like you think, I am not a bitch. That girl's a bitch. I am not a bitch. If you have if people that act like bitches trigger you into having like a really, really strong emotion, chances are you're projecting your inner bitch onto that person.
Right.
So what
always mirrors, right?
Right. So then you want to start asking yourself, well, where in my life am I a bitch? And then also, how could the bitch help me? Because when you make friends with the shadow, it starts to be of service to you. When you try to demonize it, push it further down, it doesn't go away and it starts messing up everything. So it's a really powerful practice. And I think it's so important for anybody who's into co-creating their reality, because that's going to create your reality for you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. It's such an important piece, and it seems to be one that's coming up more and more in the spiritual community. In the for anyone that's on the path of self-growth and realizing that is the number one thing we're all here to focus on doing is okay, how do I integrate the shadow part of myself? How do I integrate? Because it's not just all airy-fairy, positive, frou-frou kind of stuff. There is we are very complex beings, and you need those parts of self, and they serve you to sort of lead you to the next greatest and grandest version of self, in my opinion.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And then, did you see, I really saw a shift happen. Like it started a few years ago, and then it really started to pick up steam a couple of years ago with people like talking about shadow work. And then pretty soon you turn, it's like, it's everywhere. But I think right now is an interesting time because I think we're really seeing cultural shadows at play, like with the election process.
For sure. You're getting, I often reference one of my favorite books. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. It's a book called Oneness by, and it's not super well known. It's channel material. The woman's name is Rasha. And it is really, really good. And it talks a lot about, I always refer to it as sort of like the handbook for ascension. It kind of says, okay, here's what's going to happen as you ascend vibrationally. As the planet ascends vibrationally, you're going to, you're going to see sort of old patterns that you think you've moved through come back, and it really just kind of steps you through. Here's what you can expect. And one of the things that it talks about, and it was written many, over 10 years ago probably, and one of the things that it talks about is you're going to see these more extreme polarities, like, where it's like, have we just taken a step back 200 years or what's going on here with some of I think of this super conservative sort of dogmatic stuff that looks like something out of a circus or looks like something out of the 1800s at times. And it's like this old energy sort of coming up in the most dramatic fashion to be processed more fully. And so that definitely feels like that sort of thing is happening on the world stage right now with, politics and so forth in general. Yeah,
I totally agree. And I always say that stuff is coming up to be healed. So there's no reason to hate, just on the personal level, to hate on yourself when I thought I had worked through all of that and now I just totally did it again. It's like, well, it's just another piece that's coming up to be healed. You don't need to beat up on yourself. You just have to be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I think there's a way to just be gentle with ourselves. It's a process that happens over time.
Right. And when you understand that this is part of your process, you're going to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back at times. And it's sort of the spiral, it's not a straight line that you're walking. And there is shadow in you. There's shadow in all of us. And of course, different degrees in different people. But, I think often whenever I'm talking about shadow work or anything like that, I have a friend of mine who I don't know if you've ever heard of Lucidity Festival. It's what people refer to, I guess, as transformational festival, and I attend a lot of those sorts of events and sort of Burning Man-esque, and so it's every April in Santa Barbara, beautiful festival. And my friend Jonah, who's one of the founders, I interviewed him as one of my first interviews, maybe a little over a year ago, and who puts on the festival, and he, of course, Lucidity Festival, he has a very active dreaming dream life. And one of the things that he talked about was always facing in his dream, he would see the crone figure, you see these archetypes, or sort of this werewolf kind of creature, and he would always run from it. And it was torturing him in his dream kind of thing. And then one day it's okay, I'm going to face this thing. And this, of course, kind of parlays into fear, the conversation of facing your fears, right? He decides to face this thing, and it comes charging at him, and he just embraces it. And he goes, and all of a sudden, now he's embracing it, and they just start dancing together, right? Aww. And he's sitting here dancing with this wolf that's drooling on his shoulder, and but it turns into this sort of beautiful integrating type of experience. And it's always stuck with me, since he shared that story, because I really, this goes right along with shadow work. We're always running from these parts of ourselves. We're suppressing these parts of ourselves, and they actually are there to be loved and to be accepted. And that's how we transmute them into, they sort of, the caterpillar that they are can turn into the butterfly. And if we're running or suppressing them, though, it just strengthens them and creates more separation, within ourselves, right?
Yeah. I'm just sitting here nodding my head. And it really reminds me actually of why I like the word witch, because it's such a polarizing, it's the worst thing to name your business.
Right.
It's so polarizing, but I think that can be a good thing. I'm joking to say it's the worst thing, because it really helps you find your tribe.
It's sort of like the archetype, like the crone or the werewolf or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's I think we have a lot of healing to do around that word, because people that were burned as witches, for example, back in the day, they weren't witches. It was Christians burning Christians, and
right.
It was people, herbalists.
Or they were herbalists. Yeah. You said it at the same time.
Or sometimes it was just, the sexy girl who stole your husband, or it was the widow who had valuable land that somebody wanted. And I do think there's just, it's a word that's much less so, but that used to be for older women in particular. So I just thought it was interesting to reclaim that. And
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it still kind of has a charge for me too. I think about it a lot. And like, why did I name my business this? And why? Why? You know, but I think I like the charge that it has and what you were saying about the werewolf and the crone. And I think that really ties into that for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes total sense. It's definitely one that needs to be healed. There needs to be healing around, and has been used negatively a lot, but unfairly, right, as well. So now you talk a lot about confronting fear, and you know, of course, we started to kind of delve into that with the shadow work talk, and that being an internal cue to take action. I mean, what sort of recommendations do you give people? I know, and you also referenced that, you know, your ebook, this Spiritually Mature Witch, and you talk about keys to unlocking personal power in that book. I'm assuming confronting fear is part of that. Not having read the book, I'm just assuming.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Well, for me, let me just put this in context. I used to suffer from extreme anxiety and depression. It went back and forth. I had post-traumatic stress disorder and agoraphobia, to where I was afraid to leave my house.
Wow.
But then who I am, underneath all of the fear, is a very outgoing, silly, fun person who loves life and who loves other people. So that was very intense for me. So what I love to do is help people overcome their fear, because that was such a journey for me, you know, and I'm scared all the time still, all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would never guess, because you are so outgoing and bubbly and all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of it is feel the fear and do it anyway, just straight up. But also recognizing a lot of the tools in that ebook are about bringing yourself into your point of power, which is now. It's the only time that really exists is the now.
Right.
And you really lose your power anytime you're focusing on the past or the future. And that's really where anxiety and depression, that's where they live. So getting yourself, you know, I like to help people come up with little tools and tricks for staying in the now anytime you feel yourself starting to slip out of it, because that's where you can start taking action on your own behalf. And so that's why I like to talk about that. Yeah.
I mean, I always say, you know, there is no past. Show it to me, prove it to me. You can tell me about it, but you can't prove it, right? I don't see it. The future, okay, well, that's just a guess, because we all know it never shows up exactly like you imagine. So the present is called the present for a reason. That's where all the magic is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's where you have the power to create change and to feel the most like yourself and to feel at peace in yourself, especially if, like me, you're a head case. Like I'm such an air sign. I'm a Libra, and I'm very much like intellectual up in my head. Because I spent a lot of time with depression and agoraphobia, I read like more books than should be legal. So I I overdeveloped my mind, I think, which is awesome. But also the flip side of that is like danger. There's a danger there, you know? So for me too, a lot of learning how to be present is like, whoa, coming back into your body. So you're not just this big old floating head, you know? Right. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's definitely something that's been recommended to me before, you know, talking to people who, you know, for example, I had an Akashic record reading long time ago. I actually did an interview with the amazing woman, Sue Krebs, who's been on the show a few times as just kind of a co-host on my daily show and things like that. And that was sort of her great advice to me. She goes, look, you need to remember you're meant to bring this sort of, you know, perspective and spiritual energy down to earth, not leave and go up in the clouds. And I think that's sort of a sort of a challenge for all of us on this wavelength. You and I are similar, right, in a lot of ways. So how do we ground our energy, because it's meant to be here, not like, okay, I'm leaving now, see you guys, I'm floating off into the ethers, so to speak. How do we bring it down? How do we ground it?
Well, I will say there are a lot of the popular modalities in the New Age community are actually keeping us up in our heads. And,
right.
So things like EFT, positive thinking, affirmations, vision boards, focus wheels, they're amazing tools. I use them all. But what I'm interested in is having like the complete toolbox, because different needs call for different tools, and it doesn't make sense to use a hammer on a job that requires a screwdriver.
Right.
So, so sometimes, you need to come back down into your body as often as possible, in my opinion. But one of the most simple, easy things to do, I definitely am down for like the dancing or just kicking off your shoes and walking on the dirt or the grass barefoot.
Yep. But, physically grounding, right?
Yeah. I like to do something called witching on the go. That's what I call it. Witch on the go.
All right.
I'm busy. I'm the mother to a special needs adult. I run my own business. I'm grocery shopping. I'm standing in line at the post office, and one of the best things you can do is program a mudra. And if people don't know what a mudra is, it's a hand symbol. So for me, I just push my thumb and my forefinger together, which is kind of hard to explain over audio, but I hope people are getting the idea. It's like
right.
An okay symbol. And what you do is you kind of program it in by meditating that way. And it creates a kind of Pavlovian effect. So while you're meditating, you want to get into an alpha state. And you always, every time you meditate, hold your hand in that position for quite a while. You can say things to yourself. I am now programming my subconscious mind, or, this is me getting into alpha state, whatever you want to do, to the point where then when you're stuck in traffic, when you are in a really chaotic grocery store waiting in a long line, it's a very subtle thing that you can do. It doesn't call attention to you, but it's physical. And the pressure that it just like brings you back to yourself. And it can also help you just slightly shift your mind to where you're in a very light alpha state. You're not like out of it. You're not out of it, but you're just very like peaceful and calm. And I mentioned earlier that I like to use scent, because scent is it just goes so deep, and we have like aversions to certain scents, and then certain senses turn us on. And certain aromas, comfort us. So in addition to how I was saying, always use the same mudra for that intention, I also use like the same oil over and over and over again. So I can just like bust it out and smell.
What is your oil? What is your scent that you love? I'm curious.
It has changed. Like I'll use the same one for like 2 years and then
change it.
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
I really like patchouli. I'm a hippie. Hippie Witch is the name of my
podcast. I burn Palo Santo before almost every recording. I love Palo Santo.
Oh yeah. So that's a really strong smell too. I think that's it's polarizing
my favorite
smell.
I love that smell. It's so good.
Yeah. So it has an effect on you, So, and then there's little things I can't really show you because it's audio, but something that really helped me when I was learning to come back into my body, which was so much a part of healing from post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety, is just to like take the palms of your hands and press them together with a good amount of pressure. And if people listening right now just want to do that as an experiment, you'll just see it immediately brings you into your body. It's like basic and simple, but sometimes the most powerful things are.
Yeah. I really like the mudra idea, just the fingers or whatever, because once you train yourself, it's like we were talking about earlier with Tony Robbins. It's instantly a state changer. It's like, it's a cue to the body. Oh, go back to the state that you're normally in when you're holding this mudra. And what a great sort of hack to to deal with that stressful situation when you find yourself sort of the pressure rising, right? I'm starting to get agitated. This line, this traffic, whatever it is, it's like snaps you right into a familiar state. I love that. It's really, like you said, very simple, but definitely can see how it's powerful. Something I will start using myself.
Yeah,
that's why I do these podcasts. I love getting new ideas from people like you. It's so great.
And you've just been doing this a little over a year, you say?
Yeah. I started May of 2015.
Wow. Well, you're hauling ass. You're really good at it too.
Oh, thank you. I definitely feel like with this medium, I've sort of found my thing. I love these conversations. I love consciousness and law of attraction and all the stuff. And I think all my friends and family's ears were bleeding for years and years. And it's like, okay, I gotta find new people to talk to about this. How do I do it? Okay, with a podcast. And it's been, it's definitely, it's been a labor of love, but as I'm sure you know, with your podcast and your show, is there any better feeling than having someone sort of contact you and say, "Hey, I found this, a month ago, and it has changed my life," and thank you. I mean, there's nothing more, having some big success in business and things like that. All that's great. I've had those experiences, relationships, all of that. But helping touch someone's life is the most magical thing that I've experienced, and so it's pretty addictive.
Yes. Oh, Brandon, we are kindred spirits. I am telling you what you were just saying about making your family's ears bleed.
Yeah.
I'm such a talker, and I'm so into all the things that I love to talk about on my show. For a long time, I was in the closet about it. I just had like all these books and notes and like
me. That's my story. For like 15 years, it's like no one to talk to at all. And now all of a sudden, I have tons of people in my life. It's really opening up. It seems around.
Yeah. It really shows too that we make it so much harder than it needs to be, because I really think when you're living your life's purpose, it's easy. And it's like, I'm 42 years old, so I feel like
I'm 40. I just turned 42. We're the exact same age.
We're going to lunch, damn it. You live close enough that we have to do that. That's so wild.
It's done. Yeah. I just turned.
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
Really exciting, like when you're I would say my mid to late 30s when I really like hit my stride and was like, oh my god, I have been making my life so much harder than it needs to be, because the more you just kind of do what comes naturally to you, the quicker and the better you connect with other people, and a tribe starts forming, and you start being like, oh, I can just be myself. Well, there's a novel idea.
I know, huh?
Yeah,
I know. That is what it's about. It's like finding, what lights you up. That's the direction you need to be going. And you need to, and of course, we talk about this a lot on the show. It's like, then it's overcoming the fear of, what about this? What about that? How am I going to pay for my whatever? It's so easy to sort of come back down to earth and be concerned about it really working out for you. But it will work out for you if you're following that thing that lights you up. There will be a way. The universe will respond to that. And that's even something we've been talking about in the last few days a lot.
Yeah, and two, I think it's a lot, again, about getting out of your head, because I do biz witch coaching calls. So coaching calls with people that kind of want to do what we do is generally the kind of people that contact me for that kind of work. And I think Marie Forleo really started like this whole generation. She coined the term multi-passionate entrepreneurs. And then people get really hung up on that. It's like, well, I want to do all the things. And
I know, huh?
I'm a dancer and I'm a talker and I'm a this and a that and a this and a that. But if you look at Marie Forleo, she's really only doing one thing. She's like bringing in all the different parts of her personality. But I think to just begin and to be who you are and to let then the universe show you your path is so much more powerful than trying to be like
forcing something.
Yes, to intellectualize it and be like, well, what I really enjoy joy. Who I really am is this, and this is how it should look. It's like, who could ever imagine what you do with your life, Brandon? I mean, it's such a weird thing. Could you even have conceived of this 15 years ago, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Right? So I think just being open to and letting life show you what you're meant to be is a powerful thing to do for yourself and for the people you're here to serve.
Yeah, I play clips on my daily shows of teachers, and probably my favorite is Esther Hicks, Abraham, I'm sure you're familiar with. And
yes.
She talks about like whatever you can conceptualize for yourself is like the lowest rung on the ladder of what your higher self that can see is all knowing and can see all the angles and how everything connects. So instead of trying to force what it is that you visualize for yourself, allow, get into a state of allowance and, sort of follow the cues, but don't be trying to force what happens out there so much. And I know for me, that has been a big lesson because I think we're the same in this too. I'm such a doer. And it's like you were talking about, you have all these different passions. And of course you can do everything. You can do anything. You just can't do everything. Right. And yet I still try and do everything. And so I'm really trying to learn how to take a step back and like, okay, there's all these possibilities. So any given day, it's like I could 30 things come up of, okay, I've got 20 emails to answer. I've got this project. I've got 4 businesses I'm involved with. And, it's like, where do I put my energy today? And just kind of relax into it. And maybe sometimes it's like, don't do any of it. Just, go do something that's just about taking care of yourself. And we think that by doing so much external, Osho, one of my favorite teachers, says, don't just do something, sit there. And I think that's such an important piece to get. I know for me, it's been a big lesson.
Yeah, I think for me, having my own business has been one of the greatest spiritual teachings of my life. And it's been I started Kick-Ass Witch in March of 2012. And the process for me has been a process of letting go. I'm always finding new ways to let go. Because I guess, I don't know, I'm a control freak. I've got ideas and I see in my mind like how it all works. And then it's like that joke, want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. And
right. Yeah, I like that. That's perfect.
So yeah, just learning to let go. And the more I let go, it's let God, the more I let go, the better things get. Like life starts, you're very into synchronicity, for example. Have you read Robert Moss's book, Sidewalk Oracles?
No, I have not.
Oh my God, you're going to love it so much. I think I just sold like 100 books for that guy because I couldn't shut up about it. And probably more, actually. I did a whole month. I do themes for my business just to keep it focused and, because I can go in a million different directions. So
Surprise.
1 month was just synchronicity. And we were working with Robert Moss's book, Sidewalk Oracles. The subtitle is Playing with Signs, Symbols, and Synchronicity in Everyday Life. And what I love about that book is, he is maybe one of the most fun people on the planet. Like he really just sees life as a game.
I need to try and have you had him on your show?
No.
You should.
I'll be so jealous.
I need to try and get him
jealous. Too. Oh, you should. He's fantastic. And he coined a term, chiromancy, that's actually based on the Greek word kairos, which means special moment. And chiromancy is the art of divining through special moments. It's the art of navigating your life by synchronicity.
Interesting.
And, oh my gosh, it is so much fun. It's so much fun. And it was really fun doing that month with my crowd because we got to compare notes. Like I have a private Facebook group, so we could be like, oh my gosh, this happened and this synchronicity. And the more you pay attention to synchronicity, the more it happens, like with anything. And if you can get a group of people together where you're comparing notes, it's just such a blast.
Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Yeah, because I talk about it so much on the show, I probably get, I don't know, a handful of emails every week. Oh my gosh, you were talking about this on the show and the synchronicity of this. I mean, I get a lot of, it's like anything, what you pay attention to, where attention goes, energy flows, and we give, attention to these ideas. And so as a result, it starts happening. And of course, people listening, now they're giving energy towards the idea of synchronicity. And so, yeah, it literally like, every day of my life, just like right before we got on, we get a review from someone, with the word magic spelled with a K right before I call you on Skype to start doing this interview. So it just is from little synchronicities to huge ones. It's happening, all the time. And of course, this actually leads very nicely into a question that I always ask my guests. Do you have a story of synchronicity, serendipity, or, sort of a positive paranormal story that you'd like to share?
Well, that's such an overwhelming question.
I know it is. And I normally give people a heads up so they can think about it. And I can't remember if I did.
You did, but I'm like, because it's such a thing with me. I really see synchronicity as a guide, like the guide. Yeah. I work with a spirit guide that I've been working with really? Since my mid-20s.
Interesting.
I was really into channeling. I did a lot of channeling in my mid-20s, and I started working with this energy, and it's just,
I wasn't aware. I just had Sheila Gillette on, who channels Theo. Are you familiar with Sheila Gillette?
No.
She's the one who sort of got Esther Hicks started.
That's cool.
Esther and Jerry went to her like 30 years ago, and Esther was a Baptist, and Jerry wanted to channel, and she was like in her state communicating with Theo, which is like 12 archangelic beings, I suppose. Is what she was supposedly who she's talking to, right? And they came through and said, no, it's actually you who's going to be the channel talking to Esther. And Esther's like Southern Baptist or something. And like, I don't know about any of this. And, here we are decades later. And she's probably, one of, if not the most well-known, channeler out there.
Yeah, I was just doing it for myself. I wasn't doing it for other people. But because I have experience with it, that's what allowed me, I think, to be open to the Abraham Hicks content. Because otherwise I'd be like, what is this? And then too, because like I said, I'm such a head case. After doing it for quite a while, I started being like, well, what am I talking to? Like, what is this? And I'm wondering, maybe it's just my higher self. I personally believe I'm a bit of a pantheist. I believe we are all extensions of the divine. So
absolutely.
The mysterious divine source that creates all things, it's experiencing itself through us.
You're talking to an extension of self at this moment. The consciousness that animates this body is the same consciousness that animates that body. And from the ultimate perspective, when the chess game is over, all the pieces go back in the same box.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm like wandering so far off your original question, but in working with the way I now work with the same energy I've been working with for so long is through synchronicity, and just letting the answers come to me that way. So instead of maybe sitting down and meditating, I did a lot of automatic writing and stuff like that, but really taking it off the mat and into your everyday life, and letting spirit be your guide that way. So I guess a good example is way back. I would think back in my magic journey. I've been practicing practicing the law of attraction for a long time. I had a little phase of Nichiren Buddhism. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it involves chanting. Nam Yoho Renge Kyo is the chant. Nam Yoho Renge Kyo. And it's really, in my opinion, law of attraction with like wrapped in Buddhism. I don't know. That's kind of what it seemed like to me. But there really is something to beginner's luck in the sense that you haven't questioned it too much. You haven't gotten in your way. You know, you're just excited about it.
Right.
So I was practicing that, and I've been a writer my whole life. I'm the poet of the family. If someone needs a greeting card or a poem or a song for something, like I was the go-to person for that. And I was like, I want to get paid to do this. I want to be a songwriter. I want to get paid to do this, and I want to get paid well to do this. And I don't know how to make that happen. I have no connections, you know, and I chanted that SHIT. Sorry, I swear a lot. It's hard for me to control. I chanted that stuff using Nam Yoho. And I'll make a long story short. Just flipping through Craigslist, this thing just jumped out at me about, you know, we're looking for a songwriter. We'll pay $100 an hour. And I just knew that was my sign. That was my synchronicity. And to make a long story short, I got the job. And in addition to making a lot of money writing lyrics for this band, ghostwriting rock and roll, which I love, I also got to stay in a gorgeous beach house right on the water in Santa Barbara, and it's just like an incredible, like, how did I make this happen out of nothing? I mean, I had nothing, you know. And I actually went on to write for my own rock band, which I performed in for years, but it started with
me too. We have like everything in common.
This is synchronicity right now. Like the age, all of it.
Like everything, you're a writer. I'm just finishing. Actually, I've got 2 books in the works, but I mean, pretty much it's all. No wonder we've connected.
Yeah, definitely meant to be. So anyway, my point is, you know, letting spirit be your guide. Letting synchronicity be your guide, which I think is spirit, and getting out of your own head is so powerful. And that was one of the first moments where I went like, oh, wow, you know, like you can meet the universe halfway. You can put an intention out there and let synchronicity meet you, you know, but you don't have to just sit on a mat going humana, 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 humana. Right. You know, I mean, if I had not been like scrolling through Craigslist that day, I don't even know what I was looking for. I was just kind of scrolling around. Like that wouldn't have popped out at me. And then if I hadn't contacted them, it wouldn't have happened. So you have to follow synchronicity's lead, or what's the point?
Absolutely.
You just have a cool story to share, but it could be so much cooler if you actually took action on it.
Well, I love this story because it's, it's one of those things. If you were to tell someone who's not giving a lot of credence towards the idea of creating their own reality and attracting abundance into their world and all these sort of concepts, right? It's like if you were to tell someone who's not on that path, oh yeah, I like to write a lot and I want to write songs and get paid really well for it. It's like, and then you bring the logical mind into it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. And aside from being like Paul McCartney, you're probably not going to get paid anytime soon as a nobody to write songs for $100 an hour living on the beach. It's chances of that happening are like you have a better chance of hitting the lottery, right? And here you've done it, you wanted it, you believed it, you put the energy into it, and what so few people realize, and what I try and drum on all the time, is like this reality is completely malleable. Like the most magical, unexpected circumstances can pop up. I mean, who would find $100 an hour gig for a rock band? I mean, having been in a rock band for 8 years myself, and knowing many rock bands and musicians and things like that, I don't know too many that were out there offering $100 an hour to pay people to write lyrics for them. But you probably literally created them to be in the physical reality just for you, so you could get that paycheck and live on the beach. Because
you never know.
You never know. And that's really, I mean, that sounds funny to say, right? But I really try and look at it like that. You are the lead, actor and director in your own movie. Everything out there is an illusion. It is like, projections of light essentially everywhere you look. You're in a hologram, and the more you believe that you can manifest and create, the more you can manifest and create things that others would say are impossible. I mean, I would say that story to the average person, it's like an impossible story, right? And yet you created it. You called it into your reality. And so I love putting that out there to the world so that listeners can understand, like, take away the idea of limits. Take away these preconceived ideas of what is happening out there. There is no out there. It's all a reflection of you energetically. It's all mirrors. And so that's something that I'm always drumming on. So I love this story because it is so, like, absurd, right? That's an absurd story. Really and I love it for that reason.
And it changed who I am. I needed that experience. It gave me, it validated who I am in a way that I really needed at the time. It gave me confidence. It showed me the possibilities of magic. And another thing, be careful of the stories you tell other people, because I mean, I lived in Hollywood for years. I live right outside Hollywood right now. And I mean, if I would have said that to a group of people at a cafe, the eyes would have rolled that, I want to get paid to write songs. And the advice I probably would have been given is like,
laughed out of the place.
Yes, that's what would have happened. If I would have been lucky enough to get advice, it would have been like, well, you have to work for free for a lot of years.
10 years.
Probably. It would have been like so, just sucked the life out of me. But because I just was in that space of like, what would just blow my mind? Like, what if this works? I'm just going to try it and see if it works.
Yeah.
That's why I think Robert Moss's book is so great. And then also, I hate that her name is falling out of my head. E Squared. Who wrote that book?
Yeah. I'm familiar. I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm hating that I can't think of it right now. But it's experiments, just suspending your disbelief for just a window of time can be enough to make something really magical happen.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I think there's something to it. You talked about beginner's luck too. It made me instantly think back when I first started opening up to sort of these kind of ideas very early, 20 years old, 21 years old. And I had met someone who had like some psychic ability, and I was just so intrigued by it. Having been raised very conservative Christian and all these things, it was like, wow, what is this? Okay. And so then I started reading. I started reading, much like you, reading all kinds of things. And this guy was talking about how he had, sort of communicated with animals and had them, kind of come to him. And I forget, it's been, 20 years ago, so I don't remember the exact details of the story. But I was so inspired by it. I was like, I wonder if that's real. Can I like communicate with an animal? And, next thing I know, I'm in my room, and at the time I lived in a 6-bedroom house in Nashville, Tennessee with six guys. And so I had the master bedroom. It was a very big room, way across, 12 feet across the room. In the corner is like a moth flying in the very top corner ceiling. I hold my hands out, this thing trying to like call it forward, right? It flies immediately from across the room, probably 15 feet across the room, and lands in the center of my hands. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Now, of course, I've tried it many times since unsuccessfully, but it was that sort of beginner, I'm in this heightened state of wanting to experience this sort of magical thing. And it happened. And so, you instantly made me think of that when you were talking. I haven't thought of that story in a minute, but
yes.
It's,
and then I love how you said you tried to recreate it, because the first time it happens, it's that suspended disbelief. It's that beginner's mind, then trying to recreate it, all of a sudden, your intellect is at play. And it's like, the science of bringing the moth to my head.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's why I think just playing is just so powerful. And the more I love childlike grown-ups. I think they're so magical. I mean, kids are magic, period. But adults that either keep that with them, which is very difficult to do. I don't know very many people, if any, like that. But adults that rediscover that later in life, and start getting younger and younger and younger. Like they have so much magic, and I find that so attractive.
It's funny. I that's definitely what I strive to be. I always say I love the quote. I'm the poster adult for childhood. Like I do, and I feel like such a kid. I don't feel any different than I did when I was 20 years old. It's like it doesn't. And the more you understand, and that's why I decided one of the books that I'm working on, The Fountain of You, and it's how science and spirituality are merging to birth us into the age of timelessness. Because once you understand these concepts that we're talking about, and you understand what's happening from a scientific perspective, and the major leaps that are happening where we're literally hacking our biology and learning how to reverse damage being done to our DNA and all these things, incredible things that are happening. You bring those two into, okay, time is an illusion. We're spiritual beings who are, infinite, just because someone came here, and you came here in 1974, right? Just because someone else came here in 1994, they just incarnated at a different time. We're infinite beings. So when you understand you're in eternity right now, we're on the verge of hacking everything biologically, all bets are off on what it means to age. I think you and I could be 100 years from now, look and feel better than we do now. It's within the realm of possibility. So you bring that childlike spirit to that sort of knowledge and understanding, and it equates to being a child, being childlike. You can be 90 years old and be like a child, and you can be 18 and be like the oldest person ever. So it's really you don't have to ever get old, and I think that's a big piece of what I want to help propagate out into the world.
Yeah, I think of Tao Porcelain. I think she's coming up on 100 here pretty soon. She's a yoga instructor and a ballroom dancer, and she dresses beautifully. And I think we're having more examples like that step forward all the time. But I just want to say I'm a 1973 baby. I'm very proud of that.
Okay. So you beat me by a little bit, and then
I'm an older woman. And then what you were saying about 20 is when you said, I'm as young as I was when I was 20. But when you said that, my thought was I was such an old 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My life was so heavy, and I was so sad, and I was so ready to leave the planet. And that 20-year-old, if she could experience the life I'm having now, she would just be so blown away. She wouldn't think it was possible. She would be like, So you can age in reverse, at least internally, we'll say.
Yeah. Well, and I think it has a reflection externally as well. I can look at people that I went to school with, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened to you? And so it's all a reflection of energy, what you start really caring and loving yourself, and what you put into your body, and all these things start playing in on all levels. It's like we're energetic beings. So,
and it's never too late to be what you might have been. So, it's never too late.
Yeah, exactly. Every moment's another chance to turn it all around.
Yeah.
So what is now? You also offer coaching. What's the best way for people to connect with you, and what is that like if someone wants to connect with you or is interested in coaching? Being coached by you. What would that look like?
It would look a lot like our conversation right now. I'm very just fly by the seat of my pants. I'm a good listener, and I like to help people discover the answers for themselves.
Right.
So the kind of coaching I do, I have two kinds. I do coaching that doesn't suck. And that's what it's called. It's just straight up life coaching. And then I do biz witch coaching, which most people contact me for because I just think they resonate that I have a really quirky, different brand. And it is quirky. It's different. I'm not for everybody. But people tend to know if I'm for them, and they contact me. It's so easy to find me anywhere. My website is www.joannadevoe.com, and I am Joanna DeVoe everywhere on social media. So it's cool. It's hard to miss me. If you want to find me, you will.
Right. And of course, the Hippie Witch podcast radio show. That's
my greatest joy. I do that every Tuesday at noon, and that's definitely where the audience has gathered. I make videos all the time, and that's how I started out. But something happened when I started making podcasts. I felt myself coming alive. I felt my tribe showing up. And if people want to, find out what I'm all about, I think Hippie Witch is a really good place to start.
Excellent. Well, this has been absolutely enthralling. I feel like, Joanna, we could talk forever, and I'm sure we could. We'll have to do it again. I would like to leave you with one question that I leave all my guests with. 60 seconds or less. What is the meaning of life according to Joanna DeVoe?
I have 60 seconds. I feel the seconds ticking by. I can't do
it. The pressure.
I can't. The meaning of life is to fall in love with yourself and to learn to love yourself. Because like I was saying before, you are a unique expression of the divine, and you were created for that purpose of expression. So the more you fall in love with all the little pieces of yourself, including the shadow pieces, including the parts you don't like, finding ways to love every part of yourself is stepping more fully into your purpose here. And I think you'll find it starts to look a lot like joy the further you go down that path.
I love that. Yeah, I always say self-love is the number one thing we're all here to get done. That's the one task that, job that is on everyone's sort of earth mission statement, yes. Whether they realize it or not.
I should tell people I have a really good free ebook that I give away called Hippie Witch, Peace, Love, and all that good blank. Another swear word there.
Right.
But it outlines 7 steps to creating a kick-ass sense of self-love, because to me, like every single thing I say, that's the foundation for it. You have to, that's the piece that when you get it, all these other healing modalities and practices and tips and tricks, they make so much more sense once you get that. Like, to me, that's at the core of it all.
Right. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Joanna, for connecting. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I know the audience has too. And I look forward to crossing paths with you. We'll definitely have to catch up and do lunch since we're close.
For sure. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes, since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting. Your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.